Okay, you're welcome to today's class. So today we are going to be finishing advanced variance analysis. So we'll be looking at planning and operational variance. Now, planning variance is very important because it helps the organization to make their budget more realistic, in the sense that you can prepare a budget at the beginning of the budget period, and as the budget period go by, you found out that what you've prepared is no longer tenable because of the rate at which things have changed. On that note, you need to prepare another budget or revise the original budget. So in such instance, we call such, and after you've prepared that reversed budget, you need to calculate the variance of the original budget and the revised budget. Such variance is called planning variance. I hope you understand. Now, operational variance is actually when you have revised the budget, then you now have your actual result. So when you calculate your variance between the revised budget and your actual result, it is known as operational variance. Now, the original budget is known as ex ante budget, while the revised budget is known as the ex post budget. So we are going to be comparing the ex ante and the ex post to get your planning variance, while we'll be comparing the ex post and the actual to get our operational variance. In that regard, we will take a question to appreciate how this is done. So we have this question. It reads thus: Redco manufactures product K, which at the start of the budget period had the standard direct cost per unit of 0.3 hours per unit at 16 naira per hour. So this is the original budget, which is known as ex ante. Now, due to an unexpected pay agreement with the direct labor employees, the standard rate per hour is revised to 20 naira. In addition, since the pay rise is linked to productivity agreement, the standard time per unit of product K is reduced to 0.25 hours. So now the revised standard labor cost is now 0.25 hours at 20 naira per hour, which is equal to 5. So this becomes what we call ex post standard or budget. Now we continue. Actual output during the month is 10,000 units of product K, and these took 2,650 hours to make. The actual direct labor cost was 51,600. Analyze the total direct labor variance into operational variances and the planning variance. So we have solution. So now we are going to get our planning variance. The first one is planning variance. That is the number one. That's the first thing we are going to do. I gave a note to help us. You see, the planning variance will be computed by comparing the original ex ante budget with the revised ex post budget. The ex ante is 0.3 hours per unit at 16 naira per hour, while the ex post is 0.25 hours at 20 naira per hour. Therefore, let's compute planning variance. So you now come and find your direct labor rates variance using the formula which you know previously: standard rate minus actual rate times actual paid for. Standard rate, you look at the rate in the ex ante, which is 16. Actual rate, you look at the rate in the ex post, which is 20. Actual hour is 2,500. How was it gotten? 10,000 units was produced. Now we are looking at 0.25 hours. So that 0.25 hours is the exposed. Look at it. So multiply this by the actual units. So you now have this. So when you calculate, you have your 10,000 naira adverse. You know why it is adverse? Because the one in the bracket is negative, as I told you. So we calculate the planning variance for efficiency variance, which is standard R minus actual R times standard rate. So we now have a standard R to be 3,000. Now is it 3,000? Remember, the actual units produced in that budget period is 10,000, and the standard R for ex ante is 0.3. So 0.3 of 10,000 will give you 3,000. 0.25 of 10,000 will give you 25,000. You already know what is the standard rate, so which is 16. We did it above. So substitute in the bracket, you have 8,000, and it is favorable. Why is it favorable? Because the one in the bracket is positive. So we now look at number 2, operational variance. Now I also gave a note. Operational variance can be computed by comparing the exposed budget or standard with the actual result. Having known this, the exposed is 20 naira per hour and 0.25 hour per unit. The actual result is 10,000 units, and the actual labor hours is 2,650 hours, and the actual labor cost is 51,600 naira. So to get your direct labor rates variance for operational, in operational, you know what we'll be comparing? We'll be comparing actual and what again? And exposed. So our standard rate is 20, which is from exposed. Now our standard rate is 20, then our actual rate is now the total money we paid for labor over the number of hours paid for. That will give us 19 point something. So then the actual hour is still 2,650. You know that. So you substitute, you have this, and the answer is 1 favorable. We now come down to direct labor efficiency variance. So we have where the formula is standard hour minus actual hour times standard rate. The standard hour will be coming from exposed. The actual hour will be coming from actual results. So standard hour is 25. You know, we even did it previously. So actual hour is 2,600. So what is our standard rate? Is 20. You substitute, you have 3,000 naira adverse. So that is how planning and operational variance is computed. That is how they are computed. So since it is this way, it is easier for us to know what we are doing. It's easier for us to get what we are doing. So continue to the next level. So we have our 6. We now move down to our sales volume variance. Now, sales volume variance was treated at the first stage of variance analysis, where we said that sales volume variance is actually the difference between budgeted quantity sold and actual quantity sold times standard profit or contribution. I hope you know why it is profit, and I hope you know why it is contribution. It is profit if the company is using absorption costing method. It is contribution if the company is using marginal costing method technique. Now, this volume variance, which we said it is budgeted quantity sold minus actual quantity sold times budgeted standard profit, can be broken down into mix and quantity variance. Now, if that be the case, I believe I've done this. I've done that. So we'll move down to the next one. Sorry for that misconception. we move down to market share and market size variance. Now, under market share and market size variance, we want to look at the variance arising from market size. How does this variance arise? It arises where we compare our budgeted market size and the actual market size. We'll get the difference. That difference will determine the variance in our volume variance. So now I did some little explanation on this sales volume. Now I said sales volume can be broken down more into market share and market size if and only if the sales volume was determined by using market share and market size. So I actually took a question here and I said, you already know the formula for sales volume variance. I will still remind you: budgeted quantity sold minus actual quantity sold times standard profit. Coloco set the following sales budget to sell 70,000 units of product Y and budgeted to earn a contribution of 20 naira. Coloco estimates that the total size of the market in the budget period will be 700,000 units. It budgets to have a market share of 10%, which is 70,000. Actual sales of products Y by Coloco was 58,000 units. Total market size of product Y was 645,000 units. In retrospect, it is accepted that the budget should be based on a total market size of 645,000 units. Traditional sales volume is calculated. Now let's get our sales volume. Actual sales is 70,000. Budgeted sales is 70,000. Actual sales is 58,000. So minus them, you multiply by the budgeted contribution. So that is what we did. Budgeted sales is 70,000. Actual sales is 58,000. The difference gives you 12,000. Multiply by the contribution margin, you have 240,000. Why is it adverse? You budgeted that you sell 70. You sold 58. So you didn't meet up the number of sales you would have projected to make. So it is an adverse outcome. So now this sales volume can be broken down into market size and market share variance. We'll take market size as the first to be looked at. Now I explain market size in the note. Try and read that note. Market size variance is a planning variance, and record that a planning variance compares the ex-ante budget against the ex-post budget. So the market size variance is calculated by comparing actual market size and the budgeted market size. So now the budgeted market size is 700,000 in the question. The actual market size is 645,000. The difference gives us 55,000. You see, which is lesser. And because the actual is lesser, so this is an adverse position. Now we said that our market share will be 10% of market size. So this variance of market size will cause a variance in our own market share. So 10% of this will give us 55,000. Multiplied by contribution, we have 10,000 adverse. 110,000 adverse. Why is it adverse? Because the actual market size was actually lesser than budgeted. If it was more, it would have been favorable. So that is how it is calculated. So you see, master the format. Now, market share variance is simple. We take the actual market size was 645,000. Then our market share in percentage is 10%. That will give us 64,500. Compare it with our actual market share. Compare it with our actual market share. If you compare it with our actual market share, When you compare it to our actual market share, you would now have 6,500. So this 6,500 is now the variance, and it is adverse because we actual market share is less than the budgeted market share. So we now have our multiplied by the contribution per unit. When you multiply by contribution per unit, you have 130 adverse. If you add 130 plus 110, it will give you 240, and that is the same thing with the volume variance. So that is how market share and market size variance are calculated. There are other questions that were solved. This one is Bronco. It was also solved. There are other questions down the question line, ICANN questions that were provided and solved also. So read them up, and if you have any confusion, feel free to call. The notes are with you. Thank you for your attention.